Hi there, Nate Urandi, Orion Training Systems. Check out the sweet shirt from last year's Everesting attempt. Successful attempt. For those of you not in the know, Everesting is when you, in one ride, up one climb, surpass the vertical of Mount Everest, 29,000 plus feet. So however long it takes you, however many passes up that single climb, you have to amass in that single ride 29,032 feet of vertical, just shy of 8,900 meters for those of you who are part of the metric system. I did that last fall, plan to do it again this fall, different climb. Said I'd never do it again, but I digress. So, was part of an interesting thread on Twitter today that lasted literally hours, and you're probably thinking, what the hell better do I have to do with my time? Lots of things. But this one was specific about burden of proof. And specific, since we are coming up to the end of the Tour de France, Chris Froome, Team Sky, is he clean? Are they clean? The whole 9 yards that we've been intimately familiar with since they magically went through a team transformation in 2011. What was interesting is burden of proof. You know, the take from some people on the thread was Froome has never tested positive, therefore leave him alone, trust in what he's done, trust in what he says. The problem is that we've heard it before. I'm innocent, I've never tested positive, you know, whether it's Lance, whether it's Tyler Hamilton, the boy next door approach that he took, whether it's Mo Farah, whether it's anybody at the top level, the top 1% of the 1% in his or her sport. There needs to be skepticism, maybe even cynicism, but certainly skepticism and even scrutiny. So the spurious stance of never tested positive, therefore, you know, the burden of proof is on proving him guilty rather than assuming he's innocent, or I should say, and assuming he's innocent rather than him having to prove his innocence. It just doesn't make any sense. And here's why. The burden of proof absolutely has to be on the athletes now. And the reason is because we understand this spider web of deceit, of no testing in the case of Jamaica anti-doping, of buried tests, of bribery at the top level of many sports, even into the IOC and beyond, lets us know that the system in and of itself is corrupt. So it's not on me to prove that Chris Froome is clean. It's on him to prove that he's not dirty in this case. I'm using him as the example because we're winding up the Tour de France and this thread was about cycling, Team Sky, and him. So another thing is, and one of my comments on this thread was, I'm driving down the road and I see a dead rabbit. I know it's roadkill. I didn't see a car hit it, but I know what roadkill looks like, and therefore I know this is roadkill. So I don't need to catch an athlete red-handed to know that he or she is doping or cheating. I know what the patterns are. I know what an athlete's trajectory is when they get to national and world-class level, which are two entirely different levels of performance. I know that in the absence of trajectory from early on in a career, there is no way in hell that an athlete can reach the very tippy top of the iceberg in performance. It is highly improbable that all of a sudden, up to age 26, Chris Froome is a second at best, most likely a third tier pro, complete bush league. Then the following year, he's all of a sudden on the podium of a Grand Tour. The following year, the Vuelta, 2011 Vuelta. The year after that, he's on the podium of the Tour de France. And then after that, he has since won, or, you know, barring tragedy tomorrow, will have won 4 of the past 5 tours. Yet, we're supposed to believe that this 0 to 100 transformation occurred like that 6 years ago, when there was no history ever pointing to that level of performance prior. So another argument that was brought up in that line was, well, what about Team Sky's budget? What about their management and their scientific approach and the marginal gains, and so forth? It's like other teams have similar budgets. We look in the history of the sport, we look at Banesto, we look at Once, we look at USPS and the other iterations of that team. We look at La Vie Claire back in the 80s, and on and on and on, even back to the Merckx days. And you see teams that, have massive talent in support of one rider, even though those other athletes are very talented in and of themselves. So it's not like Sky cornered the market on amassing talent on a team. And it's not like the other teams are dumpster diving for their own talent. What the fuck? There's plenty of talent at the top that is every bit as good as what's on Team Sky. And there isn't one shred of evidence anywhere that anybody's been able to bring up that Team Sky is actually doing something that has never been done in the past. Simply doing it again doesn't make it a marginal gain, doesn't make it unique, doesn't make it unique to Team Sky, sure as shit. So here's what I'm getting at. When you've either been at the top level of a sport, and I've been at the national and or world level in 3 different sports throughout my career. First swimming, then triathlon at both the amateur and professional level, and now as a masters cyclist. I've been on the national world podium in each of those sports. So when I look at what it took to get to those levels, I know what the patterns are. I know when they start. And I know that when there's an absence of those patterns and they magically appear well into somebody's adulthood, that's a problem. When I think of my master's cycling now, when I look at the 50 plus, so the 50-year-old and up category, and they are trouncing the 40 plus age group, and in some cases riding faster than the young guns in their 20s and early 30s, that's a problem. Do I need to catch those 50 plus year olds red-handed on HGH or testosterone or whatever it is they're taking to prove that someone who's in the 50s should not be going that fast naturally? No, because I know what the patterns are. So when I see Froome doing what he's done, that is such an anomaly of a pattern that it begs the skepticism. It begs the questions. It begs the scrutiny. We can't have athletes say, I've never tested positive, or I'll never fail a test. That's the wrong answer. We've heard that song before. What we need to instead hear, and what would make me rethink the way I feel about someone like a Froome, is if he were to say in front of God and everybody, as the saying goes, look, I'm clean. I've never failed a test because I don't do any drugs. I don't have a motor in my bike. And in fact, to prove it, I will go on record right now saying, test me every single day. Every single day, test me. Every single day, take my bike apart and put it back together, both at my races and in my training. Just do it. Uncover every rock, overturn every rock, look under every rug, under every bed. Do whatever you want, because I have nothing to hide. If some athlete did that, holy shit. Talk about changing the playing field in the discussion around is he or she clean and so forth. And talk about if it's somebody who's as prominent in his or her sport, others sure as shit better follow suit, right? So we don't have that sort of leadership. It's all monkey, eyes, ears, mouth, not seeing, not hearing, not speaking. and therefore everything is copacetic and okay. That's just not the way it works. So the punchline of all this is that skepticism and scrutiny is absolutely required, and athletes absolutely should be assumed guilty until they prove they're innocent. And not failing a test does not prove innocence in any capacity whatsoever. You got to be dumb as shit to be caught in this day and age, quite frankly. There was one final point I wanted to make about this. Anyways, that's enough. As always, leave your comments below, and happy training.